Hi everybody, welcome back. If you haven't been here before, I'm Rosemary with Enchanting Rosemary Sewing and Embroidery, and I do a lot of different kinds of crafts. Lately we've been kind of playing around with my new Stellaire sewing machine, seeing some of the features that are in it. So today I thought what would be really fun to do is to make a tote bag. Sewing goes through trends just like everything else, and I've been noticing there's a lot of flamingos in the fabric. And I found this the other day, and I also found this when I was out looking for fabric to make masks, because we know we're all making masks right now. And there is a design in the Stellaire sewing machine that's also flamingos. So I thought that would be a really good way to show you some of the features that are in your sewing machine and make a fun bag at the same time. So before we even go to the sewing machine, I went to my local craft store and I bought a bag. Because to be honest with you, it's just a lot easier to buy a pre-made bag than it is to buy the fabric to make one. And I'm going to turn it inside out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut the seam that's on the side. I don't care if it actually makes my bag a little bit smaller. It saves me time and I don't have to try and rip out these stitches. So I'm going to cut this apart. Try to keep it as easy as possible. I think I told you guys once before that people who are very precise sewers or quilters, probably I will drive them crazy. So here's my bag. It's nice and flat and ready to go, and I'm going to show you how to create a design so we can embroider on that and make a tote bag. So let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a running stitch, almost like a quilt fill, that we'll put in the background on this bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this menu right here, the first one, and then you can see here's the flamingos I was talking about. And then I'm going to set those down. And the first thing I want to do is save the shape of the flamingo. So we're going to go into the edit menu and then come down here to the flower that's right here. I'm going to push that, and you can see that it saved the shape of my flamingos there. So I'm going to put that in the memory of my machine, and it's going to say that it's going to save it in my design center shapes, and that's what I want to do. So I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to go to edit. No, I'm not. I'm going to go home, say okay, and then I'm going to go to my design center. And then when I'm in Design Center, if I go to my shapes, up here's that same flower that we pushed before. I'm going to push on that, and there's my flamingos that I saved. So I'm going to say okay. And then I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm doing a little bit. And I think what I want to do is I only want to save one flamingo, and then I'll duplicate that later. So what I want to do is I want to hit the square here, and I'm going to draw a box around one of these guys here. And that will select him, and then hit the scissors and cut, and it'll go away. So then I'm going to come up a little bit closer, move my red box over here so I can see a little bit more what I'm doing. I want to draw the legs right in here that the shape didn't pick up on. So if I hit this, tell it that I want it to do a running stitch, and I'm going to draw it in black. Say okay. And then I'm just going to draw. It's not that hard to try and figure out how to draw a triangle right here. There's my triangle. That didn't come out too bad. Then I'm going to minus, excuse me, I'm going to minus out a little bit here so I can see what I've created. I'm going to hit this and tell it that I want it to be a running stitch and I want it to be in black. I'm just double checking. Hit pour and tap. So now the whole thing is the same thing. And then I'm going to hit next. And I could, now that I think of it, maybe I want to push return And I think I want it to be in this stitch instead, because that's a little bit more of a back and forth intense stitch. So that's kind of nice that you can go back and rethink things. So I'm going to hit both of those, push next, and then preview, say okay. So there's my shape that's in a almost like a bean stitch, a back and forth stitch. So I'm going to hit set and okay. So now it's in embroidery, and I can kind of play around with that shape in my embroidery hoop. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to hit edit. And see this little box right here? A lot of people don't realize what this is for. If you hit that, it will allow you to duplicate a design just like that. And I can hit it again, and it'll duplicate it again. Then I can hit the sideways motion here and add this way. And then add it again like that. Let's do 4 of them across. Now I want to split them. So to split them, you see this little one right here, it's got a line going through it. I can hit that and hit the knife and hit the knife and hit the knife again. Now they're all 4 different things. I can move them wherever I want to move them. I'm going to hit edit, rotate, sideways, sideways. So I've got one going up and one going down. That way I can do both sides of the bag. I'm going to move them just so they're slightly off. And they fit together really well. Rotate, rotate. Oh, what did you do? Okay, put that in there. If I move this over and move this over, move this one over, I actually have room for one more on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit edit, hit this box, hit the sideways one, and say plus on going this direction. And then I'm going to split it with the knife and edit, rotate. Okay, I'm back. I went out for a little bit because I had a lot of trouble getting this to actually do what I wanted it to do, but I think I got it finally figured out, so it looks the way I wanted it to do. That's kind of like just a fill that I've created that I'm going to embroider out on my sewing machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hoop up my bag, and then we're going to embroider this out. So here we are, we're all ready to embroider this out. I have put the bag in the hoop so that the top, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got the top at least so that you can see the top. I want to get as close to that as I possibly can. I put some cutaway mesh stabilizer in here because after I embroider this, I'm not going to want to have to tear this off or cut it out. I'm just going to leave this lightweight mesh in there. It'll give the bag a little more stability anyway, and we're going to line it. So now I'm ready to go. I'm going to push this down and push go. And we're going to embroider out our flamingos. So that's done. You can see that I've got a little bit more space in here than I'd probably like. I want the bag to have the embroidery design all the way to the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the app to line that up. So give me a minute. I'm going to take it out of the hoop and show you how that works. So I haven't quite figured out how to do this without putting it on the floor because I need to get the iPod far enough away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this snap capture. Okay, make sure it's under easy. And then I'm going to just hold it over my hoop like this, and it's going to count 3, 2, 1, check mark, and then it says it sent it to the machine. So send to machine. Okay, and hopefully I did that right. So let's see what happened. So you can see on the screen of my sewing machine is telling me that an image was sent from my mobile app update. So I'm going to say okay. And then it should update it with the image that's behind it. This is the image of what's in my hoop, and my big design is still here. Obviously it's too much. This part right here that's light, that is the stabilizer, and the rest of it is my bag, and the pink is the embroidery I've already done. So what I want to do is I want to just use a row of these, and also before I delete any of these, I want to put it in the memory. So I'm going to hit memory and save it in my machine so I can do the other part of my bag. And then I'm going to delete some of these rows that I don't need anymore. And let's put this one right there. And maybe this one doesn't quite fit in there the way I want it to, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I can hit edit and hit this part right here, and these will squish them together just a little bit more to make it maybe fit just a tiny bit. And then take this one it doesn't fit on the same way, but I don't think anybody who, unless they're really looking at it, is going to notice that they don't exactly fit the same way. I just want to get all the way to the edge of my bag. So that worked pretty good. And now I'm going to push embroidery, and I'm going to sew that last part on there. Let's just go over this way just a little bit so we can see the hoop. Push go. I've used the app to scan again. I rehooped the fabric a couple of times, and this last time you can see that the original flamingos that I embroidered out are overlapping these other ones. So in order to make this fit, what I'm going to have to do is go into edit and in here and use the cutting tool to cut a couple of these apart to make them fit. So we'll just cut. And push delete here. And then I think I'm just going to move them around to make them fit the best I can to get them in here. All I want is for them not to sew over the top of each other. I don't care if they're a little bit random. I'm hitting the duplicate button, so I'm just basically duplicating one at a time to make them all kind of fit in there. Maybe I can get one more in here. I think I'm going to just size this one down just a little bit. And you can see that I don't have any of the new ones over the old ones. This is the picture of the older ones. So those all fit in there pretty good. Let's just move that one over just a tiny bit. Move this one over just a tiny bit. This one still doesn't want to do what I want it to do. So maybe they're just going to face each other. That'll be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to embroider this out. One of the things I forgot to show you before is when you're doing something like this, that you're repeating the same thing and you're using the same color. When you hit embroidery, saying I'm ready to start embroidery, hit layout, and then this little emblem right here is going to tell it to just keep on sewing. In fact, if I hit layout again, you see everything's gray, so it'll go ahead and sew this whole thing out without stopping, which makes it a lot easier on me. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's turn this over this way just a little bit, hit the down button, get a green light, and push go. And we should be finishing up this bag, and then I'm going to show you another. Okay, so it looks like that sewed out really nice. I'm really pleased with the way it looks. So we're going to go on to the next step. So we're back over here in our menu, and I'm going to hit this menu number 1, and here's our flamingos that we used before, and I'm going to set that down. And I don't know if you know this, but if you have a Stellaire, a Luminaire, or a Dream Machine, you have a sizing function that's kind of neat. If you hit Edit and Size, just like on any other embroidery machine, you can size this up 20% or down 20%. But if I hit this little emblem right here, it says OK to reset pattern. You say OK. Now I can make this go up 100%. So now I just made a really big picture that's going to take over almost my entire hoop, which is what I want to do. And I'm going to say OK and embroidery. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to embroider this out. Okay, so I finished the embroidery. You can see that I did the flamingos on here, and then we've got all the flamingos in the back of it. And here's my bag all laid flat. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut another piece of the fabric that I showed you before to be the exact same size as my bag. I just laid it across the top and cut it the same size as my bag. And then I'm going to take another couple of pieces of fabric, And there's no particular size that you want it to be. You just kind of want it to come up to close to the top. And I doubled it over, as you can see, and I folded a seam on here. So what I'll do is, after I folded the seam, is I'll just turn it inside out like this. And then press it nice and flat. So I'm gonna press this one out like this and lay it right here. And this is the halfway mark where I've got this seam right here, so that's pretty good right there. I want one on one side and one on the other side. And I'm gonna put a pin right here and another one don't do that. Don't go all the way through. We're just going to pin it to the lining part. So I'm going to put a pin here and put a pin right here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew this seam right here. And then I'm going to sew a couple seams up this way to create sections that I can put either pencils in or a checkbook or my phone or whatever it is I want to do that. So let me take it to my sewing machine. I'll be right back. Remember, leave the bag here. We're just going to do the lining at first. So I sewed all of those seams to sew that piece on, and then I went ahead and sewed the side seam so it's folded over. And I'll turn it inside out so you can kind of see what we ended up with. So I've got some partitions. I actually sewed a seam here so that it didn't make such a deep pocket. If I want to put something in there, I don't want it to disappear down into the pocket. And on this side, I made some smaller pockets that I can put some things in like that. So now what I want to do is I want to do the bottom. And the way you do that is you kind of take it and pull it till you have a corner like this. And then sew a seam straight across here. And you want to measure up from here about 1.5 inches and just sew straight across there. And then do the same thing on this corner. I always say the most important part is make sure they're both, that you do them both in the same measurement. So if you measure up 1.5 inches there, you want 1.5 inches here and sew across here. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it so that right sides are together, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sew it up the side and I'm going to take the same amount of corner off. And then we'll put one inside the other, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. I sewed the side seams up and I did the corners, and I did the same thing with this one, and I went ahead and folded the top down about 1 inch and pressed it so that when I put it back in here, and you want the right side in when you put this into the bag, just like this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put it right up against the top. See where the original hem was? I'm going to bring it right to that hem, just like this, pin it in place and top stitch it, just like that. So here's my bag. It's all finished. I think it came out pretty good. I really like it. It's got the flamingos on the front, and we've got the stitching on the front and the back. And if you look at the inside, let me see if I can open it a little bit more for you. You can see all the pockets that are inside of it, the fabric, and I can put all different things in here. And it's more of like a summer bag maybe, and we're going into fall, but I thought it was a really fun project. Store-bought bag, probably cost me $3.50, and the fabric was about 1/2 yard of each of those, so it wasn't very expensive at all to put it together, and we had a lot of fun, didn't we? If you like the projects that we do on this channel, I'd appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.